Welcome to Whisper and Learn channel. In today's video, we'll dive into another engaging story to help you improve your English listening skills while enjoying a relaxing and stress-free experience. Each story is crafted to teach practical vocabulary, enhance your comprehension, and provide meaningful life lessons. So grab your headphones, relax, and let's begin.
New Year's Eve in the city was always a mixed bag. For 32-year-old Nick Harris, a rideshare driver, it meant braving icy roads, impatient partygoers, and the ticking clock of a holiday rush. Still, the promise of good tips kept him behind the wheel. Nick adjusted the heater in his aging sedan as he accepted another ride request. The name on the app read Sophia, and the pickup location was a quiet neighborhood on the outskirts of downtown. He sighed, pulling away from the gas station he'd been idling at. The streets were alive with bursts of celebration. Fireworks crackled in the distance, and groups of revelers streamed in and out of bars. Nick had spent the better part of the evening chauffeuring passengers to parties, all of them buzzing with plans and resolutions. But tonight felt different. There was an unshakable quietness in his chest, a nagging feeling he couldn't quite place. Maybe it was the thought of spending another holiday alone, or the growing sense that his life was stuck in neutral. When Nick pulled up to the pin on the map, he found a lone woman waiting. She was bundled in a long coat and scarf, her gloved hands holding a small suitcase. The dim streetlight illuminated her delicate features and tired eyes. "Sophia?" he asked, rolling down the window slightly. She nodded, her breath visible in the frosty air. "That's me." Nick popped the trunk for her suitcase and waited as she slid into the back seat. She smelled faintly of lavender and carried an air of something, what, he couldn't quite pin down. "Where to?" he asked. Sophia hesitated before replying. "Just drive for now. I'll tell you when to turn." Nick's brow furrowed, but he shrugged. "Okay, your meter's running." The car rolled into motion, the engine's hum punctuated by the occasional pop of a firework. As they left the residential area, Nick glanced in the rearview mirror. Sophia sat upright, her hands folded in her lap, gazing out the window. Nick tried to spark a conversation. "Busy night for you?" Sophia's gaze was fixed on the window. "You could say that." He waited for her to elaborate, but she didn't. Instead, she asked, "Do you drive every New Year's Eve?" "Pretty much," Nick said. "Good money. And I've got no plans anyway." Sophia's lips curved into a faint smile. "No resolutions?" he chuckled. "Not really my thing. What about you?" She turned to meet his eyes in the rearview mirror, her expression unreadable. "I'm working on one tonight." Nick didn't press further. Something about her tone suggested she wouldn't share more if he asked. Instead, he focused on the road ahead, letting the silence settle between them. After a few quiet minutes, Sophia spoke again. "Turn left up here." Nick followed her direction, steering the car into a residential area he didn't recognize. The houses were spaced farther apart, their festive lights growing dimmer. They passed a darkened park, its snow-covered benches abandoned. "You sure this is the way?" he asked. "Just a little further," she said. The road narrowed, and the GPS on Nick's phone lost its signal. He felt a twinge of unease, but pressed on. Finally, Sophia said, "Stop here." Nick pulled over beside an old iron gate. Beyond it lay a sprawling cemetery, its gravestones shrouded in snow. "I'll be right back," Sophia said, unbuckling her seatbelt. "You want me to wait?" She nodded. "Yes, please." Nick watched her silhouette disappear through the gate. The minutes stretched on and he began to fidget. Something about this passenger, this night, felt strange. He glanced at the clock. It was nearing midnight. The radio playing softly in the background switched to a countdown. 10, 9, 8. Nick's curiosity got the better of him. He stepped out of the car, his breath clouding in the freezing air. He peered through the gate, his boots crunching on the snow. 7, 6, 5. In the distance, he saw Sophia kneeling beside a grave, her shoulders shaking as if she were crying. 4, 3, 2. Fireworks lit up the sky as the new year began. Nick hesitated, then walked toward her. "Hey," Nick said softly as he approached. "You okay?" Sophia wiped her eyes and looked up at him. "I'm fine. I just needed a moment." Nick glanced at the grave. It was adorned with fresh flowers and a small, framed photo of a man who looked to be in his 30s. "Your husband?" he guessed. Sophia nodded. "James. He passed away last year. We always spent New Year's Eve together, planning our goals for the year ahead." Nick didn't know what to say. He stood there awkwardly, feeling the weight of her grief. "I thought coming here would help," she continued, "but it doesn't bring him back." "I'm sorry," Nick said. "I can't imagine how hard that must be." Sophia gave him a faint smile. "Thanks for waiting. Most drivers wouldn't have." "It's no problem," he said. "Do you need more time?" She shook her head. "No, let's go." As they drove back toward the city, Sophia's mood seemed lighter. She asked Nick about his life, his dreams, and what had brought him to driving. "It's not forever," he said. "Just something to pay the bills while I figure things out." "What do you want to figure out?" she asked. Nick hesitated. "I guess I want to do something that matters, but it's hard to know where to start." Sophia nodded thoughtfully. "Sometimes starting small is enough. Like tonight, you could have canceled my ride, but you didn't. That mattered to me." Her words stayed with him as he dropped her off at a modest apartment complex. She thanked him, her smile warm and genuine. "Happy New Year, Nick," she said before disappearing into the building. As Nick drove home, the quiet streets mirrored the thoughts racing through his mind. Sophia's story lingered. Her quiet resilience, her willingness to confront her pain. It struck him that while he had spent so much time searching for meaning in grand gestures, perhaps meaning was found in the smallest acts. The clock on his dashboard ticked past midnight. The fireworks had faded, and the city was settling back into its usual rhythm. Yet something felt different. Sophia's words echoed. Starting small is enough. When he reached his small studio apartment, Nick couldn't bring himself to turn off the engine. He stared at his reflection in the rearview mirror, then at the streaks of frost clinging to the glass. On a whim, he opened his phone and searched for volunteer opportunities nearby. One caught his eye, a late-night hotline for people needing someone to talk to. He signed up. The hotline training was short but intense. Nick found himself on the other end of calls he never imagined taking. There were nights when the stories broke his heart, and others where a simple thank you left him with a lump in his throat. For the first time in years, he felt part of something bigger than himself. Meanwhile, Sophia and Nick stayed in touch. Their conversations grew longer, and she shared her own steps toward healing, joining a support group for widows, picking up painting again, and even fostering a dog named Luna. Sophia's laughter over the phone was becoming more frequent, more genuine. A year later, on the next New Year's Eve, Nick found himself driving again. The roads were just as icy, the city just as bustling. But this time he wasn't alone. Sophia sat in the passenger seat, Luna's head poking between them from the back seat. They were headed to a small gathering of friends they had both made through their volunteer work. It was a quiet celebration, but one filled with warmth and connection. As they pulled up to the house, Sophia placed a hand on Nick's arm. "Do you think we'd be here if you hadn't driven me that night?" Nick smiled, his breath fogging in the cold air. "I think that ride changed everything, for both of us." They stepped into the glow of the house, laughter and music spilling out to greet them. For Nick, the rideshare app notification that had once felt routine had led to a journey he would never forget. And as the clock ticked closer to midnight, he realized this was the kind of life he had been searching for all along.
Thank you for listening to this story on Whisper and Learn channel. We hope you enjoyed it and learned something valuable today. If you liked this video, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more stories that make learning English fun and effective. Let us know in the comments what you think of this story or what topics you'd like to hear next. See you in the next video. Happy learning.